And then lastly, we've got to challenge the war economy. We've got to have a movement that understands the connection between systemic racism, systemic poverty, ecological devastation, and the war economy. Now I want to say something today very carefully because I've been watching the news some and I'm through. I'm deeply sympathetic for General Kelly and the loss of his son. And I have deep pastoral sympathy for the 4 young men that died and all of the men who died and women who died, and many of them who died fighting in places like Iraq that we should have never been in the first place, and America has never truly repented for how we go around and we set up dictators like Saddam Hussein, and when they don't do right, then we send our boys and our girls over to uproot them. Today, though, I heard the general say, he said, if you haven't served or have a family member that served, he said, you don't know how to make calls. He was making an excuse for the president where he called a pregnant woman, said, you don't know how to make calls. Now, that's not true. That you don't know how to be compassionate unless you've had somebody serve in the military or die in the military. I pastor veterans. My deacon chair is a retired Army Ranger. My trustee chair is a veteran. The people who helped me in security, one of them was a veteran of Vietnam. And they don't do it just because I ask them, they actually do it because they love the work we do and they love the fact that we are standing up against the war economy because they've been there and they know what can happen if this military industrial complex is left to itself. People don't know in the Moral Monday movement, when we went to jail to protest extremism, the clergy and the veterans led us in. Veterans who said they didn't go and fight halfway around the world to come back to North Carolina and see voter suppression. They said they didn't go fight halfway around the world to come back to North Carolina and see politicians who get free health care or subsidies for their health care, and then they block other people from getting health care. They said, we didn't fight for that. In my pocket, and where I go, I won't show it because I don't want the political fallout for the brother, but I carry a general star, a general's coin. Some of you military know what this is. I was given to me by a general, and he wasn't an African American, who gave me the coin and he said, thanks to those of you in the movement, because while I'm in the service and I have to possibly go to war, we need what your movement is doing because somebody has to keep fighting for peace, because anybody that loves war is out of their mind. That's right. And a general told me that. The day when I heard General Kelly say he was stunned by a member of a Congress or a congressperson who listened to a call, that bothered me. First of all, evidently he doesn't know how the black community works. You don't have just one mama. You don't have one aunt. And when you're going through trauma, we call everybody over.
That's right, come on now.
We have something called wakes and stuff, and everybody comes and everybody brings food over.
Yes.
The congressperson wasn't acting as a congressperson. She helped raise that boy.
That's right.
And her mama, his wife had asked her to come. He was a son of the community. And when he said he was stunned by the fact that she listened to the call, but if the call hadn't been crazy, what would have been wrong? I'm glad she listened to the call. I'm glad she wasn't there alone. But what bothered me about that, and I'm not hating on anybody but Mr. General, I know you've been general, but you haven't come publicly and said you are stunned by Trump's racism. You're his chief of staff, and you haven't said you are stunned about the way he talked about John McCain.
Yes.
You didn't say, you've not come forward and say you were stunned by the way he talked about the Muslim brother and his son. You haven't said publicly you are stunned by Trump's goal to end the Affordable Care Act, which will actually hurt veterans. In North Carolina, the refusal to expand Medicaid is blocking 30,000 veterans from getting health care. You haven't said that you are stunned by the way he's attacking immigrants when we have Muslims and Latinos and many other people fighting in the armed services. We gotta watch this stuff. God knows in my heart, I know you're hurting, Brother General. Your son got killed and other, but you can't say certain things like this publicly and dismiss other reality. You, Mr. Kelly, you didn't say you were stunned about the way the president has lied about voter fraud, which is one of the freedoms soldiers fight to protect. And I say this as a son of a Navy man who went into a segregated Navy in 1940s. My father, who was willing to give first-class blood for second-class citizenship, I'm stunned that so many of you would try to make the oppressive and the racist and the mean comments and actions of this president be normalized. When I left home, and I go home, and I've got another member that's a woman that's headed to Korea right now. And Mr. Kelly, you've not stood up and said you're stunned by the reckless behavior of Trump toward Korea. Huh? You said, Mr. Kelly, he said this, he said when he was young women were sacred, and religion was sacred. He said this today, and life was sacred. He said, and it looks as like that's no longer true. He said he's stunned by that, he's bothered. But you aren't publicly stunned by a president who took 5 deferments from serving, a president who has violated women, a president who has violated religion and misused it, and has violated the most sacred call of religion, that is to care for the sick, the poor, and a president who has literally violated the very things you said you thought were sacred. And I'm stunned that you would get up and say only those who knew a Gold Star family could ask him a question. He said that today. When he works for a president who is president in spite of ever serving, in fact, who got deferment. And the reason I bring that up tonight for my last point is what we saw today was a display of military arrogance. When you think you can limit who questions you, when you think that you can say statements like those in the military are the best 1% of the nation, what does that do to the rest? You don't even have to say that. You can just say they're great, they're best. You don't have to equate them as other folk as being less than. And the problem with military arrogance and this war economy is that it has gotten this nation into more trouble.
I know it.
Right now, because of military arrogance, taxpayers in the United States are spending nearly $4 trillion for wars since 2001. According to Joseph Stiglitz's Nobel Peace Prize economy, that money could have been used to transform our nation. Used to transform our nation. 54 cents, 54% of every discretionary dollar goes to the military. Not health care, not jobs, not education, not infrastructure. That's immoral.
That's right.
To be having a conversation now that we need to build the nuclear arsenal as though being able to blow the world up 6 or 7 times is not enough. To have a president that's calling for $54 billion more to go to the military than the Congress even asked for. $1 billion of our bloated military budget could pay for 12,000 elementary school teachers, 17,000 infrastructure jobs, 100,000 Head Start slots for children, 30,000 scholarships for university students. Now the question is, what will make us safer? More and more and more and more money for building the mother of all bombs, or money for jobs, education, healthcare, and infrastructure? That's the question. And that's the question we must put before America. It's immoral that our communities are being militarized, as the Pentagon provides free access to military weapons and equipment left over from Washington's wars to the local police forces, which are supposed to protect us. We have to deal with our war economy and systemic racism and systemic poverty and ecological devastation. And finally, we have to deal with the moral narrative.